Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahushai, Ba'ishim, Rakakodash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Ba'ishim, Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who ruled and teach well. And peace and salutations to Ya'akim out there pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the Brother Raya with another video, and I'll be reading from an article on ZeroHedge.com titled, I Am Not a Virus. Outbreak leads to shocking rise in racism towards so-called Asian people. As new cases of novel coronavirus continue to emerge across East Asia, as well as Europe and North America, another pandemic with possibly more deadly implications has swept across the globe. The revival of shockingly racist and vile sentiments targeting people of so-called Chinese and East Asian descent in the form of false news reports and general hysteria. And this is just another example of end times prophecy taking place right before your eyes, the buildup towards these coming race wars. This is Matthew 24, verse 7. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. And that nation against nation is these different races of people fighting against each other when Jacob's trouble really pops off. Because it's not just going to be these Israelites or so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans fighting these Edomites or so-called white people. It's going to be these so-called Chinese people who are the Moabites fighting against these Edomites fighting against these Ishmaelites or so-called Arabs, etc., etc. It's going to be going on at all angles, and you're just seeing the beginning stages of Edom rising against Moab, who are the so-called Chinese. 2 Esdras 15, verse 15, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, again those race wars, and swords in their hands, fighting with weapons, whether it be bats, clubs, sticks, or that modern day sword, the gun. And don't be surprised as this coronavirus and these other plagues intensify that you start hearing about attacks in the news of so-called white people on so-called Chinese people. But hey, I don't feel bad about it at all. You Moabites and you other heathen nations get what you deserve because you constantly oppressed the children of Israel, and now you're getting a taste of your own medicine and you don't like it. And it's only going to get worse from here on out. And this is also a curse of Yahweh Ba'ishim Yahushai on you Moabites. This is 2 Esdras 15. I'm going to read 46 through 49. And thou, Asia, thou art partaker of the hope of Babylon, and art the glory of her person. Woe or destruction be unto thee, thou wretch, because thou hast made thyself like unto her, and hast decked thy daughters in whoredom, that they might please and glory in thy lovers, which have always desired to commit whoredom with thee. And if you've noticed, China got its rise to become the second leading superpower in the world, though some people say it's the first, by following after the ways of Babylon or the United States of America. They've adopted aspects of capitalism into their government to make their economy more open to the world. They've become a major manufacturing base like the U.S. was during the 40s and 50s, and they've moved towards a more westernized mindset from their traditional ways, which was heavily pushed by Mao Zedong when he took over with the Chinese Communist Party. That's why you see these Moabites wearing business suits, shaving their faces, speaking that so-called good English, and using a lot of the same business tactics that these Edomites use. And when you really scrutinize China, you can see how they're the canary in the coal mine, so to speak, for what these elites or these Rothschilds and Rockefellers want to do with their New World Order. They're heavily into 5G Wi-Fi. They have a lot of cashierless stores, which you use payments with RFID tags, which will be easily convertible to the RFID microchip implant, which is the mark of the beast. Physical currency is frowned upon in that country, so a lot of people use their phones to pay for things and other forms of digital currency. And they're heavily into biometrics like facial recognition and fingerprint scans. Just look up the Chinese social credit score. Thou hast followed her that is hated in all her works and inventions. Therefore, saith the Most High, I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine. You've got the African swine fever over there, which has killed off hundreds of millions of pigs. And pork is a staple of the Chinese diet. And also they've got the bird flu popping up again, which has caused them to kill off a lot of chickens. Sword, such as these race wars building up with these other nations of people across the world turning against these Moabites. And pestilence, coronavirus, again, African swine fever, and the bird flu to waste thy houses with destruction and death. And when these nuclear missiles start to get shot into the ends of the earth, China's going to take a few of them. And also, besides you Moabites being partakers in the hope of Babylon, the Most High hasn't forgotten how you Moabites have confederated yourself with the Edomites in the past in coming against the children of Israel. You're one of the top nations to do so. This is Psalms 83. I'm going to start at verse 1. A song or psalm of Asaph. Keep not thou silence, O power. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O power. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. The tabernacles of Edom, you so-called white people, and the Ishmaelites, you so-called Arabs, of Moab, the so-called Chinese, and the Hagarenes, you Moabites are in the top 3 nations that were confederate against the nation of Israel to cut us off from being a people. An example in the past is the king Balak, who tried to get Balaam to put a curse on Israel. And another example is in the book of Judith, when you and the Edomites helped Holofernes to come against Israel. This is Judith chapter 7. I'm going to start at verse 6. But in the second day, Holofernes, who was an Assyrian general of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, and at this time Babylon was coming against the southern kingdom, brought forth all his horsemen in the sight of the children of Israel, which were in Bethulia, and viewed the passages up to the city, and came to the fountains of their waters, and took them, and set garrisons of men of war over them, and he himself removed toward his people. Then came unto him all the chief of the children of Esau, and all the governors of the people of Moab, the tabernacles of Edom and Moab, and the captains of the seacoast, and said, Let our Lord now hear a word, that there be not an overthrow in thine army. For this people of the children of Israel do not trust in their spears, but in the height of the mountains wherein they dwell, because it is not easy to come up to the top of their mountains. Now therefore, my Lord, fight not against them in battle array, and there shall not so much as one man of thy people perish. Remain in thy camp, and keep all the men of thine army, and let thy servants go into their hands the fountain of water, which issueth forth of the foot of the mountain. For all the inhabitants of Bethulia have their water thence, so shall thirst kill them, and they shall give up their city, and we and our people shall go up to the tops of the mountains that are near, and will camp upon them, to watch that none go out of the city. Let us confederate ourselves against them, so that we may cut them off from being a nation. You Moabites and Edomites gave Holofernes a strategy on how to cut off the water supply against the children of Israel, so you can lay siege against them and starve and thirst them out. So hey, that's why the Most High is beginning to drop that sword on you Moabites. Let's get back into this article. I just read that. On Thursday, the phenomena took a heartbreaking turn, with a Moabite man collapsing and dying from a heart attack in Chinatown in Sydney, Australia. According to reports, onlookers ignored the 60-year-old man as he suffered, refusing to give him CPR and leaving him to die on the sidewalk out of fear that they would catch the coronavirus, according to the Daily Telegraph. Jackie Lau on Twitter says, coronavirus is really fueling some potent anti-Chinese racism, huh? I'm trying to keep an open mind, like it's okay that these cultures like to eat strange things. Meanwhile, I am thinking, filthy, godless people spreading disgusting diseases via their lust for foul foods. No wonder it took them thousands of years to almost join the modern world. Pamela Langhorne, an Edomite, says, how does such a backwards population live in the same country that produces state-of-the-art computer technology? In addition to their population involved in high-tech pursuits, still believe in aphrodisiacs obtained from tiger/lion paws, elephant tusks, and shark fins. Hong Kong View. No matter how rich China is, as long as they are still eating dogs and bats and all these animals, the world would not see them as a civilized country. It is simple as that. Slovakia. It's based on absolute batshit crazy beliefs from way back machine, and it has to stop. They torture these poor animals. This outbreak is well deserved in my opinion. Hey, nation shall rise against nation. And while the coronavirus reportedly originated in Wuhan, China, those far removed from the outbreak are feeling the devastating impact of the aggravated racism towards so-called Asians. South Korean newspaper Hankyoreh reports that in France, a Korean woman complained that she faced bigoted harassment multiple times thanks to the upswing in xenophobia. The newspaper reports that in a post to a South Korean online message board, the woman complained, an older man called me a dirty Chinese expletive. A guy who looked like a high schooler got in my face and told me to get lost. I really lost it for a moment when a homeless person walking down the street even called me a derogatory word for a woman. Even when I explain I'm Korean, people tell me that all Asians should leave. I'd been afraid this might happen, but experiencing it personally has shown me how hard it is to bear such hatred. It makes me afraid to go to crowded places. Hey, join the club. This is what so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans have been feeling for the longest time. But you Moabites didn't care. You thought that just because Esau gave you some goodies, like being able to open these Chinese restaurants or getting specific grants and scholarships to go to these colleges, that you were in good case with these Edomites, and that you felt entitled to look down on these niggers, spics, and tontos who couldn't do any good for themselves. If you Jakes, I know you Jakes have noticed this, whenever you go into these stores owned by these Moabites, they're always looking at you and following you around. And if you're taking time to look at the menu, they'll tell you to hurry up in a very smug voice. But hey, now the chickens are coming home to roost. Meanwhile, on France's BFM TV, an Asian-descended French person complained, when I was coming out of a sports stadium in downtown Paris, a boy made fun of me by shouting, "Here comes the coronavirus." The complaints come amid an outcry over a headline published last week in local newspaper Courrier Picard that reads, Alerte Yuan, or Yellow Alert, or Le Peril Yuan, Yellow Peril, alongside an image of a Chinese woman in a protective mask, harkening back to a racist early 20th century concept of the so-called yellow peril, pitting the so-called civilized white world or Edomite Western world against the alleged threat posed by peoples of the Orient or Eastern Asia. Cette leçon de racisme de complexe vous est offerte par les, pretty much saying the yellow peril. The alarming rise in overt racist abuse across public transportation and social media in France has led to many Asians taking to social media using the hashtag Je ne suis pas un virus, or I'm not a virus. And these French Edomites have never liked you Moabites. I remember back in college, I was talking to a French girl, and she was complaining about how you Moabites were in her country. She actually compared you Moabites to cockroaches. From Toronto to even as far as San Diego, Chinese-owned businesses have been sharply impacted. Even across Latin America, seemingly harmless memes about catching the coronavirus from Asian retailers like Chinese variety store Miniso or Korean counterpart Komuso reflects the irrationality that has gripped the masses. Every Asians are not Chinese. Every Chinese people isn't affected by the virus, you fucking racists. And Apostle Tahar did a video on how in Houston, the Chinese businesses are starting to take a hit because people don't want to go and buy from their stores, thinking in the back of their minds they're going to catch the coronavirus. And while many scientists believe that there is a nexus between the coronavirus and animals, with many of those infected having worked in or shopped at a large meat market in Wuhan, a number of uneducated assertions and racist jokes have conflated the diets of Asians and Chinese with the outbreak. In one clip posted to Twitter by anonymous user FreeMindHK, an Asian man can be seen eating live baby mice along with the caption, "Chinese delicacy, probably one of the causes for the emergence of Wuhan coronavirus." And I actually saw that video. He was taking literal live baby mice and dipping them in melted butter and crunching on them. However, Chinese social media users, including one who claims to reside in Wuhan, deny that live mice is a so-called delicacy and has also pointed out that there is not blah, blah, blah. That's pretty much it. I'll read these here. From Thompson on Twitter, "Dear the people of China, please stop eating batsuit, koala, and hamsters. It's making us all ill. Yours sincerely, the rest of the world. I really hate this. The Chinese have no morals. They disgust me. They are cruel, heartless people." Tommy Lauren on Twitter says, "Here's a crazy suggestion. Maybe don't eat bats. Hashtag coronavirus." Allison replies, "This is why people don't take you seriously. I, as American, don't eat bats. Therefore, everyone else who does should stop because I, as an American, dictate the colon, blah, 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 blah. Who cares?" That's it with this article. But hey, as you can see, these racial tensions are building up, and that curse of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai is starting to befall you Moabites. So with this video, I hope you sincere Akim are edified. And as always, I'm going to say Abba Bo, Kwam Yasharala. Till next time, Shalom.